Hi, I'm Di. Welcome to my channel. If this is the first time you've been here, thank you for joining me. And if you're returning, thanks. And if you've subscribed, thanks very much because it's really helping my channel. So let's get into it. What am I doing? Well, I've had a really busy morning. You can see all the dishes I've done in the background. We've just finished lunch. I'm looking after my two 18-month-old grandchildren today. I do that every Tuesday, which I love, but they've just gone down for their afternoon nap, so I'm going to take the opportunity to make something quickly because one of my daughters is going to pick up my grandson from preschool, then come back here and they have afternoon tea. So I'm going to whip up something for afternoon tea. So join me as I do it. Now, what am I doing? I'm making an apple and rhubarb pie. So let's see how we do it. So a while back I posted a video on making the perfect pie crust, and I made a load of them and popped them in the freezer just for this type of thing. So when I want to be quick and make something, it's there, it's ready to go, so I'm not making pastry at the same time. So I'm just greasing my pie dish, just using a little bit of margarine on there. Now, we do say that a little bit differently to people in America. I think that they say margarine and we say margarine, but everybody knows what I mean. So I'm in Australia, so I say it the Australian way. One of the many things that we say differently to each other, but I'm sure that the message gets across. Okay, so I will post the video on the pie crust. Sorry, I'll post the link to it in the description. So these I've had in the freezer. I took them from the freezer and popped them into the fridge this morning. So they are defrosted, but they're quite cold. And I'm just going to roll them out between two sheets. Oh, they're still a bit too cold. I hope they're not frozen. We'll get there. We'll roll them out. And so the bottom one, I'm just going to put it into my pie dish. And then I'm going to put some baking paper on top of that. I'm going to weigh it down. Now, you can use whatever you like. Some people are fancy and they have baking beads. Some people just use beans, dried beans or dried peas. I use rice and I use it over and over again. So you will see in previous videos, a lot of previous videos, I'm using the same rice. So we use that to weigh down the pie crust into the dish so that it stays nice and flat while it cooks. So we blind bake it so that the pie crust has a chance to actually cook, because if I loaded this with all the apple and rhubarb that I'm going to be putting into it and then put it in the oven, I very unlikely will get a nice crispy dry pie crust. I'll get probably a soggy mess that's not cooked properly. So this is proving a little bit difficult for me to roll because it's still very, very cold. I should have brought it to room temperature, would have made it easier. But anyway, we're getting there. So another thing, people will notice lately I've had bandages on my hands. I've got one glove on. I'm going through a lot of treatment at the moment for skin cancer, a peril of living in Australia with fair skin, Irish and Scottish heritage. So yeah, I'm a natural redhead, so freckles and fair skin, yeah, are me. So yeah, I'm just going through a lot of removal, biopsies. So I've often got stitches underneath the bandages. It was just a biopsy yesterday on a finger. But yeah, I've always taken very good care, used sunscreen, try to avoid the harsh sun. But obviously that's not enough. So anyone out there, especially if you're living in Australia, you cannot be careful enough. I'm not just dealing with one or two, I'm dealing with multitudes. well over, it's probably getting close to 50. Yeah, so some can be burnt off, some have to be cut off. I've got to have skin grafts. But anyway, that's for another day. So in case you're wondering why I often will have one glove on or bandages, that's the reason. But it doesn't stop me from doing what I want to do. I mean, it slows me down a bit. But yeah, we're getting there. So that pie dish is quite big. So I'm trying to make this the right size. So we'll keep going with it and we'll come back. Okay, so that's as big as I'm going to get that pastry. Now I just have to carefully remove the paper without tearing the pastry. And I am going to be reusing this paper again in a moment as well. The pastry is really cold. Okay, there we go. Now we'll bring our dish over. Pop that in there. Just adjust it. Need a little bit more over this side. There we go. Okay, that was a bit of an ordeal, but it's done. We've got our pastry there. Now, I did say I was going to reuse it, but that's just going to stick. It's got pastry all over it, so I will use a fresh sheet. I'll pop that down. And now I'm going to weigh my pastry down by using my rice that I spoke about. So just spread that evenly. And then I've had my oven preheating to a moderate temperature, which is 160 degrees fan forced. I'm going to pop that in there for 15 minutes. Then I'll take it out. I'll remove the rice and then I'll pop it back for another 5. So while that's cooking, join me at the stovetop and I'm going to make the filling for it. So I lost a little bit of footage there. I was showing you that I put rhubarb into my saucepan. Now that rhubarb was picked fresh from my garden, probably about March. I chopped it up, put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. I did not cook it, did not blanch it. So the freezing process has made it rather soft. You can see that's soft. There's a lot of liquid coming off it, but I have drained it because I think that there's still a lot more liquid to come out of that as it cooks. On top of that, you'll see that there's stewed apples. They're apples from my apple tree. We had, you know, you pick them all at once, they're all ready at once, and we had too many, so I stewed them without anything. So there was no cinnamon, no sugar, nothing. It was just apples cooked down, put into a Ziploc bag, and they've been frozen since June. So well, we're the 20th of maybe even the 21st of November. So they have been in the freezer for a good while, and we're getting more apples on the tree. We won't be picking them until probably about May next year, but we're going to have a very, very good crop. So I do want to start using what I've got stored. Now, because the rhubarb is a very sour type, well, I was going to say fruit, but it's not, it's a vegetable, isn't it? It will make it sour. So we do need sugar, and I'm just adding some sugar to that to balance out the flavours. I'm just going to stir that through. Now I'm going to bring that to the boil, and I'm going to cook that for a little bit so that that rhubarb can cook. So come back when that's cooked. Okay, I've taken that out of the oven. I gave it 10 minutes, and I'm just going to remove the rice very carefully. So just moving that so you can actually see what I'm doing. Right, so I'm just putting the rice back into its jar. Ready to use for the next pie. So now I will put this back in the oven and give it another 5 minutes. Back over at our stove where we're cooking the apple and the rhubarb. Now that's been boiling for quite some time. Just checking to see if those larger pieces of rhubarb are cooked. Remembering that it also is going to be cooking in the oven as well, so it doesn't need to be completely done, but yeah, they're cooked. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to thicken that. So it does look pretty thick, but I would like it to be a little bit thicker than that. There's a lot of juice in there, and I don't want it to make a soggy pie. So I'm just adding a mixture here, which is mixture of corn flour and water. And I've just dissolved the corn flour in the water, and I'm just going to pour some of that in, mix it through and cook it, and see how thick that becomes. And if I'll just gauge it. No measurements here. If it's thick enough, then I'll leave it. If it's not, I'll add some more. So we do want to boil that for a bit to cook that corn flour out. Yeah, that's nice and thick. Might just make it just a tad more. There we go. Oh, that's nice and thick. Yep, beautiful. So we'll just leave that to cool while the pie crust finishes partly baking, and then we'll come back when that's ready. Okay, I've taken the pie crust out of the oven. Now, the idea is not to cook it all the way, it's partly cooked. So it started to crisp on the bottom. I've rolled out, I don't know if you can see over here, I have rolled out, no you can't, over here. I've rolled out the top, that's the top piece for the pie, and the filling that I've just cooked, I have put that into the fridge to cool down. So when that's cool, we're gonna, or a bit cool, because I don't want it piping hot, we'll come back and we'll fill our pie. Okay, back again for the final steps. So we're going to fill our pie. Sorry Sorry about that. So here we go. Here's our pie crust. The filling is still rather warm, but it's not piping hot like it was before. So we may not use all of this. There we go, that's enough, and we've got a little bit left over. Now, it's rather sticky, but it's all in one piece. Just pat that all down, and now we need to put it onto our pie. So position it, and we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to be pulling that off the parchment paper. Okay, there we go. Now what we want to do, just trim that up at the edge there. And I've got a few little gaps, I'm just going to fill that in. There we go. There we go. And we just want to put a little bit of decoration in that around the edges, so we're just pressing that down with a fork. Pastry is rather soft. And we just want to make some vent holes in there. That's just to let the steam out as it cooks. Now I'll brush that over with some beaten egg, so I'll just come back with my egg. So I'm just beating my egg. Oops. I'm just beating that with a fork, and now I'm just going to brush over the top of my pie. Okay. That's all done. Now I'm going to sprinkle some caster sugar over the pie. Now, I don't know if it's called caster sugar in other countries, but this is just a fine sugar, not a standard granulated sugar, but it's quite fine. So, just sprinkling that over the top. It's still rather warm, I'll need a cloth. And now I'm just going to pop this back into the oven until the top is nice and golden brown. So we'll come back when that's been done. Okay, so to go with my apple pie, which is still cooking, I'm going to whip up some custard, just a quick custard with some custard powder. Not making this one with egg yolks this time, but I've got some milk in the fridge that needs using up, so I'll get that out, make it into some custard, and that will be nice to serve with the pie. So I'm just putting on the heat there, and I'm just going to be adding my milk to the saucepan. And now I'm just going to reserve some of this milk because I want to use that for mixing into the custard powder. So I've just got my bowl here and I'm going to add my custard powder to it. Now I'm not really measuring it out. I've got just over a litre of milk there, and so that's 1, 2.5 heaped tablespoons of custard powder. And what I need to do is that milk that I reserved, I'm just pouring some of that in. and with a wooden spoon I'm just mixing that. Just have to make sure it's a spoon. Yes, I've got my granddaughter here with me. She's just woken up from her nap. So we're just mixing all that powder into that milk, and I'll just get the rest of the milk and I'll pop that in to the saucepan. There we go. So I just need to mix this thoroughly and make sure that there are no lumps. If there are any lumps in here, then there's going to be lumps in my custard. So it's just a matter of just stirring it and getting rid of all those lumps. Anyway, what we're doing, we're waiting for that milk to come to the boil, and when it does, I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, our milk is just about to come to the boil, so I'm just going to turn that off. I'm going to mix that through to make sure that there's nothing on the bottom there, it's all thoroughly mixed. I'm going to add the milk into the custard mixture. I'm going to mix it around, and then it goes back to the saucepan.
Mama.
And then I'll put the heat back on, and then I'm going to stir that until it boils and thickens. It's already thickened because it did have a lot of custard powder in there. So we're just cooking that until it comes to the boil.
Mama.
Yes, darling.
Here.
Thank you. There we go, it's just coming to the boil now. We can see the bubbles appearing. Now we're just going to boil that for a few minutes. Well, not even a few minutes, just a minute really. Just a minute or two. Make sure all that corn flour is cooked. Okay, that'll do us there. Now what we're going to be doing is just turning that heat off, bringing it back to our bowl. I'll just scrape that down. So it's all in our bowl now, and this is where we add the sugar.
Sugar.
And we're going to add our vanilla essence as well. So there we go. Mix that through. And then just adjust the flavour. So if you need to add a little bit more sugar, go ahead and add it.
Mama.
I'm not adding too much sugar to this custard, not making it super sweet, because the pie that we're cooking is very sweet. So there we have it. Okay, there's our pie straight out the oven. We're just waiting for that to cool down now, and then I'll show it to you when we serve it.